Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem. Amma ba'd. Fa'auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. It was back in the time 9/11 happened. Before that, we would talk about Dajjal, we would talk about end of times, and still it was a very thrilling concept to understand what could happen in the future. Because I was coming from that background when we will be going over the predictions of Nostradamus and watching those clips that how the world is going to be in future, and then trying to relate, oh, Quran mein bhi aise hi hai, oh, Hadith mein bhi aise hi hai. And when 9/11 happened, there was so much happening and there was so much confusion as to what is my role as a Muslim towards Ummah, and how do I manage the turbulence I have felt in my life when all the fingers are pointed towards Muslims. What's my role now? Because by that time I was also a Quran student, and Ustaza was not here in those days. She was already abroad and she was trying to educate people over there. We were not like extremely well connected via Zoom. Social media connection was not that strong that we could like continuously learn from her. So some of my friends said, let's get in touch with some scholar and let's ask someone authentic to guide us about this crisis. What should be our behavior, what we are supposed to be doing, how we settle our emotions, how we identify our role. So we contacted Dr. Suhail Hassan. When we asked him that if you could guide us on some of the topics, and he said, okay, I will teach you Babul Fitan from Mishkat. And every evening, there were a bunch of ladies, about 30 to 40. We would sit and he would teach us. Those concepts were so different from what I was seeing people, how they were handling different trials and tribulations. And I was the one who would be constantly asking him questions. नहीं सर ये नहीं हो सकता, सर ये कैसे होगा, सर ये कैसे करेंगे, how is this possible? And it took me a while to sink all those concepts, and ultimately, alhamdulillah, when Ustaza was back and she started teaching us Babul Fitan, though we were students of Bukhari, but we had not reached till that chapter. So we are living in times of fitnas, and every day these fitnas are increasing. And it's like, you don't know how to connect these dots. Like, there is a time when you're not a Quran student, you're like a regular lukewarm Muslim, coming from a Muslim family, born as a Muslim, having a Muslim identity, but not sure about how to practice that identity. You say, yeah, because everyone prays in my family and everyone fasts, so maybe karti hu. I'm a Muslim because I'm born in a Muslim family, and we're living with lots of questions, and we are trying to find clarity in that identity. Then comes the next stage when you have this urge to learn. You actually want to find out what is there in Quran, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us, how we're supposed to live our life, why Sunnah way of life is important. So now you're seeking those answers. And when we are on that path, we are actually trying to enhance our practices. So that's the second stage. Then comes another stage in our life when we are Quran student, one way or the other. You could be a listener or you could be a regular student. You could be focused in the Islamic knowledge, or you could be just attending some variable sessions. And now you're loaded with questions. why this is happening? If Allah is Ghafurur Rahim, then why this? The nature of disasters, my personal challenges, the challenges of Ummah. And that's the time when we have so many frustrations. We don't know the reality of life. We are in fact not able to understand the reality of life, and especially when you're interacting with some of your friends, peers, and even on the social media, and people are sort of talking to you in a very vindictive manner. Islam mein ye kyun hai? And why this and why this not? You feel helpless, you don't know how to explain. And something inside you tells you they have a very logical stance. But I don't know what to do about it. Then we look at our families. When we keep hearing from our parents, बेटा हम तो ऐसे नहीं करते थे, हम तो ऐसे रहते थे, हम तो ऐसे रहते थे. Our life was so much better. We used to respect our elders. We did this and we were very cautious about this. And then we are like, I'm living in a different world. I'm Generation Z. So I have a different set of problems. But again, I don't know what are the solution to these problems. I'm again stuck. So when you read this book, What to Do in the Times of Trials and Afflictions, you will be able to find the clarity where you place yourself as an individual in your personal trials, then as a believer, as part of Ummah, when you look at the global scenarios, you do understand with clarity what you're supposed to do. So we'll be having 3 classes on this. I'm going to just give you an overview of this book, and I will try my level best to give you a clear understanding on this concept. For one thing, what we have to understand is, when we try to see what is this book all about, we need to have clarity as believers that this world is a testing ground. We are not here to enjoy. You know the YOLO concept, you only live once. And the moment we hear YOLO, it means enjoy your life, enjoy the thrill, have dopamine gush. No, it's not the concept. For a believer, the concept is, I'm going to be tested. And the very next moment, the question in my mind is, but I need a break. I get overwhelmed by the tests. I need to relax for a while. I'm a human being. Exactly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us as human beings. He has given us a brain with a reward system. And that reward system every day craves for dopamine. And basically what we're doing is, every day in our life, we don't know how to release that dopamine in a healthy manner. We starve ourselves of that healthy dopamine. So imagine that you don't even have an optimum level of dopamine. You don't feel rewarded in any way. And then there are trials and afflictions in your individual life and in your collective life. So what will happen? When you need some energizer, some breather, it's not there because you have never practiced it. But subhanallah, we find out that that's why Islam is a way of life. It's the most beautiful deen, most beautiful religion, because it has a preventive approach and it also have curative approach. Preventive approach is, I don't have to wait for a trial or tribulation to happen in my life and then reward myself one way or the other. When people are upset, they get a bucket of ice cream. That becomes rewarding for them. They have this sugar craving because brain says, I'm starving. Give me some dopamine. So people move towards addictive behaviors. Sugar, vaping, drugs, smoking. Because they don't know how to manage themselves with a healthy dose of dopamine. So our deen tells us that in our regular life, we need to know how to release that dopamine. When there are trials and tribulations, even then We need to know how to sustain ourselves with that healthy dose of dopamine. Have that peace inside. Understand the reality of life. Understand the nature of test. And you can make a comparison with any test that you have in your life. For example, you have an exam. If you are very settled, how would you perform in that exam? Good or bad? Good. Even if it's a tough question, you would know how to handle it. But let's say if you're already worried, anxious, you have not slept the whole night, you have a brain fog, what will happen? Even if the exam is very easy, you won't be able to perform. The things that we're going to talk about, it is important to understand them from a perspective of prevention as well as when you actually are in a fitna. And remember, we need to understand in all the times, no matter what happens, we need to have that peace inside. We need to be able to reward ourselves, feel rewarded. I just had a class in a university, and after the class, a girl came to me. I'm teaching them about anger management. So she said that it's not related to the topic that you've just covered, but I'm really worried. She said, I have joined a Quran course and I've just done with one para. And then she broke off crying saying, Mera andar se kuch toot hi nahi raha. I'm the same person, and after doing one para, I'm only able to practice 40%. Wow. After one para, you are able to practice 40%? You have excelled. And then I said, if after one para you have come to that point, so imagine when you'll cover the next 29 paras where you would be. But she said, Mujhe farak hi nahi pad raha. I'm not getting better. So I told her, you need to celebrate that 40%. Each day, even if there is one learning, you have to understand to celebrate it. So that you are well equipped from inside to deal with all the challenges. So this place is for exams, tests. In Surah Al-Anbiya, verse number 35, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us about this. وَنَبْلُوكُمْ بِالشَّرِّ وَالْخَيْرِ فِتْنَةً وَإِلَيْنَا تُرْجَعُونَ. And we test you with evil and with good as a trial. And to us, you will be returned. So anything that is happening in my life, it's a party time, enjoyment, thrill, cousin ki shadi, apni shadi, new phone, new laptop, a trip abroad, or someone's death, a toxic relationship at home, or mismanaged emotions, something bothering me, failures in life. Everything is a test. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to test us with evil as well as with good, shar and khair. Like whenever you have an exam, we don't know all the questions. We don't know answer to all the questions. It's like a mixed thing. And that is why when we go home and our family members ask, Kaisa hua? And you're like, I knew some of them and I'm not sure about some. So that's how life is. It's like a seesaw. Sometimes it's good, we are still tested. Sometimes it's bad, we are still tested. Everything that is happening is a test, and ultimate return is towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is this fitna? Fitna is coming from the root word fatana. Fatan. That is when you actually take something and you put it on the flame so that the impurities go out. Especially this word is used for gold. So usually what they do is they put the gold on a flame, and because of the heat, the impurities are washed off and the pure gold is there with us. So that means in our life, whenever there is a jolt, whenever there is a test, the impurities in our life go away. And we all have experienced that. Like you might be just doing whatever you want to, and something happens. And we immediately, दुआएं, कौन सी दुआएं पढ़नी है? Oh my God, my salah these days were so bad. I was not focused. I was thinking about something else. It was just a ritual. And you start improving the quality of your prayers. Or you feel like the du'as that I am reciting is just a lip service. And suddenly something happens and you're like, as if I'm reading this dua for the very first time. Wow, I never focused on the translation or the meaning of this dua. Or you start working on your relationships. So tests, they come in our life so that we are shaken, we don't become stagnant, and we want to work on ourselves. Prophet ﷺ said, be prompt in doing good deeds before you are overtaken by turbulence, which would be like a part of the dark night. So we have been advised to hasten in doing good deeds. And this also sort of becomes a yardstick for you, that you realize how much wisdom I have to deal with difficult situations. As a doctor, as a professional, this is what we learn. Like we all study medicine. But end of the day, people who learn how to take best decisions in the most difficult times, when a bleeding patient is there, a dying patient is there, or when you have to decide each minute matters, what decision you take, that's what tells you how equipped you are. That makes you into a better professional. So similarly, as a believer, every day we have to act like that. Whenever there is a test, that's when I need to see myself where I stand. What is it that I'm good at? And what is it that I'm missing out? Because otherwise what happens is, we just lead our life and we're like, why everything wrong is happening in my life? So when you know, oh, this is another test. Actually, I've taken admission in an institution where I have midterms, where I have assignments, where I have final exams. And as I progress, the exams are going to be difficult. When you are doing PhD, you won't be getting an exam which you used to get when you were in preschool. It's so obvious, it's so logical. So similarly in life, the exam you had when you were 5 years, 10 years, 18 years, 30 years, you're not going to get those exams when you're 60 years. That means all the time we need to be alert. We need to understand. Just say, when you're especially young, how do you see yourself? You're like, bas, let me finish with this course. Let me go back to my studies. My mom promised me if I do this course, she will allow me to be in a certain university or do whatever I want to with my life. So then it will be time for my flight. I'll be able to do what I want to. Wow. No, honey. When you're about to fly, you'll get a weather forecast. Or the mechanical engineer will come up and tell you, ये आपका इंजन खराब है, इसको ठीक करें. So something will keep happening that you will have to fix. And that is when we get so disappointed with life, and the problem with us is we start blaming our near and dear ones. Just because of you, I wasted my 1 year. And see, this is happening to me. Just because how you restricted my life, you always forced me to pray, you forced me to cover myself. I'm not my original self. No, this is because you did not take this life as a test. And you did not develop yourself accordingly. This is so interesting. When we study sciences, we find out about the concept of resistance. Physics says friction is a force, else it will be difficult to keep things in place. If we don't have friction in life, when we're moving the objects, what will happen? Nothing will be able to work. Our machineries, our cars, nothing will happen. All the mechanical things happen because of the resisting force. They give us formulas for that. So similarly, in our life, when nothing is happening, life becomes boring. And that is exactly what it is. When somebody asks you, और क्या चल रहा है? You're like, nothing. कुछ नहीं. People who are depressed, that's how they feel. It's not like nothing is happening in their life, but that's how they see themselves. So friction, it keeps us going. In Quran, we find out that fitna is mentioned about 11 times in different contexts. It has different dimensions. The tests are going to be subjective. It could be related to different aspects of our life. So we need to have some basic concept about what is a fitna, what is a trial, what are the tribulations that we have been told. For one thing, understand that it's an absolute reality. We are bound to have tests in our life. And sometimes we follow the principle, grass is greener on the other side. We see our test and then we look at another person who is talking about his or her own test and we're like, ye to kuch bhi nahi hai. Let me present my thesis. And tell you what a big victim I am. I was listening to one expert and she said that we are sitting in a circle and we have been told to put our bigger test in the pool and then pick out whatever we want. And you know what will happen? We would immediately pick back our own individual test. Acha, have you noticed that sometimes you have a quiz? So there is a teacher inside the room who's taking the exam or a quiz and you're waiting outside. So whoever comes out, you ask her, kya pucha, kya pucha? And she tells you, ye pucha. And you're like, I don't know the answer to this. Iska kya answer hai? Iska kya answer hai? And when you go, it's your turn, you're like, gosh, she was just scaring me. The teacher asked me such a simple question. Or I knew the question that she was asking. Why? Because your exam is for you. Those questions were for the other individual. And remember, we are on this roller coaster ride. How many of you have sat on a roller coaster? Those of you who have missed out, you have not missed out anything. It's just the adrenaline and cortisol which is gushing out in your body. But how does it work? You're in a roller coaster, so it's slowly moving. And you know, oh my God, we're going to go to that peak and then we're going to have a fall. And then we're screaming. And once we're done, what happens? We want to go back again in that loop. So life is a roller coaster. There are certain things which have been told to us in Quran and Hadith. So if you have a bigger picture, inshallah, in our next class, we'll be going to certain ahadith and we'll be elaborating on them. So first get the bigger picture. Every Muslim will go through some trials and tests. The Muslim homes are going to be hit harder with these tests. Does it click something? Because we say, मैं तो कुरान पढ़ रही हूँ, अब क्यों मेरे साथ ऐसे हो रहा है? Is Allah angry with me? Our tests are directly connected to our iman. The more well-versed you are, the more tests you will have. And you know, sometimes that happens as a reality. We're sitting in a class, we're looking at our teacher who is teaching us Quran or Hadith or a certain subject related to Quranic sciences, and we're like, she doesn't even know what test I'm going through. The teacher is going through bigger tests because she's more equipped. So the tests are going to be more intensified for her. But the moment you take up this claim, I'm a believer, the more you connect to Deen, the tests will intensify. It's not like you're a criminal, you're a bigger sinner, or you are a hypocrite. We are all going to be bulldozed by these tests. The tests will be there in life of each and every individual. Then the believer, the more you work on your iman, the test will increase. Sometime back I read this very interesting story in Japan because they eat fish. So the people in the fisheries industry, they would catch the fish and transport it to the cities. But then people said that the meat doesn't stay that fresh. So the fisheries department, they started thinking how we can make that meat very tasty. First they tried to freeze the fish. No, it wasn't working. Not that quality as you pick the fresh fish and you bake or cook it there and then. What they did was they made bigger containers, and they would put water in those containers, add fish over there, then transport the fish. It was better, but not still to that quality. Then they try to work on the temperature and whatever food they will serve the fish in those containers. It again got little better, but still not the same quality. And ultimately one think tank came up and said, we have an idea. And what they did was they put shark in all individual containers. And what happened? The fish, they were in constant motion. They were trying to save themselves from the shark. Because if there is a lazy fish, the shark would attack and eat that fish. So when the fish was continuously in motion and they reached the spot, some hotels or those places, selling points, the quality of the meat was superb. So we all have these sharks in our life so that our iman doesn't get stale. We should not ask for those sharks. We should never say, Allah Ta'ala, please give me blue shark, a whale. I have read about sharks, I have a lot of knowledge, so Mediterranean shark and this shark. No. Allah Ta'ala, please save me from the sharks. I don't want them to eat me up. But there are going to be sharks in your life. Then the nature of these trials and tribulations will vary. Remember the roller coaster again. Sometimes you have a very steady motion, but again they tell you to keep your seat belts fastened, the safety mechanism should be in place, and be warned something could happen any moment. And then there could be bigger tests, smaller tests, bigger tests. They will be variable. Then you also need to understand that once you get settled with one fitna, one trial, after a while something else would happen. Because a lot of time I've seen people, bas ye ho jaye. I have seen especially ladies saying, bas iski shaadi ho jaye. Shaadi they कहती हैं, हाय मसला पड़ गया. शादी के बाद she is coming back to me or he is coming back to me. My kid is married but now they have another set of problems. कहते बस इनका बच्चा हो जाए. अच्छा बच्चा हो गया, another set of problems. I mean, kid is not a problem, but the thing is obviously they will be tested again. बस बच्चा स्कूल जाना शुरू हो जाए, खाना शुरू हो जाए. You know, we are like, I don't know why we are living in this delusion that one fine day we'll get up and life is going to be bed of roses, just enjoyment. No, it will not happen like that. It's never a concept of happily ever after. Happily ever after is only when you enter Jannah and you actually get that spot. This life is never going to be happily ever after. It's always going to be about test. And you know, the more we understand that, we will be able to save ourselves from all sort of mental health challenges.